The air in Redwood Ridge tasted like pine and potential, but the sweet scent was immediately poisoned by the stink of pure entitlement. I'd barely finished hanging the sold sign on the dilapidated 1940s cabin before the first cease and desist letter from the Homeowners Association landed on my porch. Was this seriously how they welcomed new neighbors? I crumpled the glossy, linen paper document, an angry sigh escaping my chest, and tossed it onto the growing pile of bureaucracy threatening to choke the joy out of my dream. The cabin itself was a marvel. Deep cedar siding, moss growing thick on the shake roof, and a porch that sagged just right beneath the towering canopy of ancient redwoods. It was an aesthetic of history, defiance, and quiet strength. An aesthetic the Homeowners Association ruled by its iron-fisted president, Penelope the Pin Sterling, clearly deemed non-conforming. Their primary demand? Tear off the natural cedar and replace it with stately beige vinyl siding. Per Architectural Standards Document 4.3.b. You have got to be kidding me. I spent the first 2 weeks in a state of buzzing, righteous fury, the scent of pine and sawdust mixing with the metallic taste of indignation in my mouth. Every morning, I was out there, the scrape of my paint scraper against decaying trim the only sound besides the distant, mocking squawk of a blue jay. I was meticulously restoring the cabin to its original glory, not modernizing it. I was preserving, damn it, not neglecting. I was sweating through 3 shirts a day, the sun filtering through the giant trees creating dazzling, shifting spotlights on the dust motes. And still, the letters came. They started citing penalties, then legal fees. Then came the morning I cracked. I was up on the roof, carefully replacing a rotten shake, when a massive black SUV, the kind that screams unauthorized authority, pulled up the gravel drive. 2 men, built like professional linebackers in ill-fitting security uniforms, stepped out. They didn't knock. They just stood there, their boots crunching ominously on the gravel. I felt a cold dread clamp down on my throat. "You need to cease all work immediately, sir," the larger one boomed, sounding less like a neighbor and more like a rented antagonist. "HOA President Sterling has issued a direct order. You are trespassing on community aesthetic standards." I climbed down, my hands trembling not from fear, but from the sudden, white-hot rush of adrenaline-fueled rage. "Trespassing? This is my property. And you," I pointed a shaking finger, "are 2 goons hired by a power-tripping suburban tyrant. Who are you?" "The Redwood Ridge Aesthetic Police. We are authorized agents of the Homeowners Association," the other one grunted, pulling out a clipboard. Oh, the clipboard. That small detail made the whole intimidating spectacle feel utterly ridiculous. They handed me a new document, heavy with legalese, threatening an immediate injunction. My head was pounding, the smell of the damp earth and the fresh lumber suddenly making me feel dizzy. How could they do this? I knew right then this wasn't just about siding anymore. This was a war for territory and control. I decided to stop fighting their fight and start fighting mine. I dove deep into the county archives, spending 3 days smelling like old paper and moldy history books. I had a hunch. Why was this one cabin so different, so old, compared to the cookie-cutter McMansions the Homeowners Association had approved? That's where I found the secondary twist. The original land use agreement from 1952, 20 years before the Redwood Ridge Homeowners Association was even incorporated. My cabin, named the Settler's Retreat on the old plat map, was explicitly designated as a heritage structure due to its early pioneer construction. Furthermore, the 1974 Homeowners Association founding documents, the very ones Penelope cited, had a tiny, overlooked clause. All properties designated as heritage structures at the time of incorporation shall be exempt from aesthetic conformity standards regarding exterior materials and color schemes. The next Homeowners Association meeting was set for a blistering Tuesday night. The community room was packed, the air thick with tension and the smell of cheap coffee. Penelope Sterling stood at the podium, her immaculate blonde bob unmoving, radiating cold superiority. She launched into a venomous 20-minute presentation, complete with projected images of my cabin, labeling it an eyesore, a blight, and a direct threat to property values. She ended with a flourish. Therefore, the board votes to levy the maximum fine and immediately seek a court order for mandatory demolition of the non-conforming exterior. She looked directly at me, a tight, triumphant smirk curling her lip. "Do you have anything to say, Mr. Hayes, before we finalize this matter?" I stood up slowly. I wasn't shaking anymore. I felt cool, composed, and utterly lethal. I walked to the projector carrying a single, brittle, laminated document. The silence in the room was absolute. "I do, Penelope," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. I projected the old plat map onto the screen, highlighting my cabin's original name. "This cabin is the Settler's Retreat, and according to the 1974 founding documents, Section 2.A, which you, as president, are sworn to uphold, heritage structures are exempt." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Penelope's face went from smug to a ghastly, mottled white. She stammered, That clause is archaic. It was superseded." "Was it?" I countered, now projecting the original deed of her own colossal, multi-story Mediterranean-style home. A home that was built in 1998. Because while I was reviewing the history, I noticed something interesting about your own property's compliance. I pointed to a huge, non-regulation rooftop terrace on her house. That structure, per document 4.7.c, the one detailing maximum roof pitch and height limitations, is 18 inches too tall and constitutes an unapproved addition. That document was established in 1985, meaning your own addition is in direct, non-exempt violation of Homeowners Association bylaws. The fandame was complete. The crowd erupted into confused, angry chatter. The Homeowners Association board looked like deer caught in headlights. Penelope, the self-proclaimed queen of conformity, was exposed as the biggest hypocrite in the room, using archaic laws to bully me while ignoring modern ones for her own benefit. The immediate aftermath was swift and bitter for her. The injunction against me was instantly dropped. The 2 hired security goons were fired on the spot. Within a week, the Redwood Ridge community had demanded, and received, a vote of no confidence against Penelope, who was forced to resign in disgrace. She was last seen packing up her rooftop terrace and was reportedly facing thousands in fines herself. The irony was a satisfying, crisp sound. I finished restoring my cabin, using the original, beautiful cedar, and the only mail I received after that was an invitation from the new, slightly humbled Homeowners Association board to join the Architectural Review Committee. I smiled, looking out at the silent, majestic redwoods. They had stood against time, against storms, and now my small piece of history had stood against petty tyranny. Wasn't that the most satisfying victory of all? It turns out the true foundation of a community isn't uniform beige vinyl, but the courage to stand up for the quiet, deep beauty of authenticity.